Power is always dangerous.
The winter is coming.
I'm getting lost in the details of nothing.
Remember the first time you saw Star Wars? We were still living at your mom's house.
Dwight visits Tina before returning to Tulsa. Pete agrees to send Goodie to Oklahoma, while Roxy tries to keep the FBI at bay. Dwight has an offer for Mitch. This is Season 1, Episode 6 of Tulsa King, Stable, and you are channel surfing with the bargain bin. Description from IMDB, we will not be holding back on spoilers. I am Sandro, and I am joined, as always, by my podcast partner in crime, Ben, and our neighbor downstairs, Mark. So, what did we think?
I'm going to start off here and saying that I see this as a hard reset for the storyline of the season. And I find that problematic because we're 6 episodes in and it seems like now we are going to tell the story. So we're over the halfway mark, guys. And the humor that we all loved at the beginning, I think was a ruse. Just to get us hooked on the characters. And now we're getting to some serious storytelling, some of which I strongly dislike, and some I'm on board with completely. I'm curious though, what did you guys think? Do you agree that we're changing genres here a little bit?
I don't think so. I actually saw this episode as more of a pulling the trigger episode, where everything that we saw building up until now is going to start coming to a head. So it's not necessarily that they changed the tone. It's just that they've now embraced the tone that they have been building up to, because it was a bit of a gradual progression from episodes 1 to 5. You could argue that the capper might have been the final scene of the previous episode, but as an episode as a whole, this was the one that then started to say, all right, we've told you the pieces, we've shown you the players, it's go time.
Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I do think the mood has seriously changed. And it did. Obviously, it ended on the head stomp, the curb stomp, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Took 5 hours to clean up, gentlemen. How dare they?
I like that line.
But even from picking up at the airport, and I have to be honest, I think the lack of washing the car. How the heck could you pick up Dwight without a washed car? When you that is your job. Remember, he was in the driveway washing it the one time. Where did that pride go all of a sudden? Or it seems like something, but even maybe that's a subtle thing. But the way Dwight was awkward on getting picked up, the conversation was completely just tense, and there was zero of the fun that we really get in. And I felt like that's how they hooked us. I thought that's what was going to happen. It seems like that's what's happening.
Yeah, they're definitely making it feel dirty. In regards to your statement about the car, the story is now dirty. I hate to have to bring up Sons of Anarchy again, and I apologize for doing so. But
it's Ireland.
The last episode for me was Ireland, season 3 of Sons, and now it feels like we're getting back on track, but things are a lot darker. And I'm cool with all of that if they build a strong story from this point on. Like it felt like it meandered here and there for me. I like that we start off with the return of the horse, the return of Pilot, always breaking out of the stable. I find it weird though that we go immediately to Stacy, who I'm glad to see get more screen time, but her looking out for Dwight multiple times and trying to sidetrack Roxy's story to keep the focus on Waltrip and not on Dwight. I feel like Stacy's lost in the shuffle again. Is that a safe assumption? Do you two feel the same way?
I could see the lost in the shuffle, but she's also becoming a lot more insertive as a player in the story as well.
Yes.
I'm curious, at what point does she keep protecting him to where she oversteps a line, right? Because he's not really asking for her help, and he's kind of like, I don't need your help. Do whatever, bye. And she's going to obviously continue to help. It's just where does she cross her lines, right?
Yeah, very curious. Another question immediately that popped out for me was, how do you two feel about the fallout from Dwight killing the package? I thought that it was going to be a much more violent reaction from the mob and not Pete stating that basically Dwight was in the right for everything that he had done. And had he known, he would have done it himself.
I think it further draws a divide between kind of like the new generation and the old guard of the mob, because Pete still seems to have the same kind of principles that Dwight has, just maybe not as involved or physically capable of being involved. And that's also creating this direct conflict with Chicky, who, I still feel a little bad for him, because it feels like he's almost like the fulcrum in the middle of that seesaw, and he's just trying to balance both sides without going completely insane.
Yeah, you mentioned that when we were watching the show, and I really appreciate that POV, because I missed that, and you saying it, like, I'm very curious to see what Chicky does moving forward. He gets minimal screen time, but his character is incredibly important with how the rest of the show is going to play out.
It's an interesting point of view on the balance, but this is the first time I saw Pete ever really kind of dress him down in front of anyone. And when he said, "Why do you have to make me do this to you?" It's like, that seemed like a super duper slap in the face.
It is, but that's part of what he's trying to balance, because he's trying to do right by his dad, but he's also trying to, in a way, because I don't think he actually has any resentment towards Dwight himself personally. He seems to like Dwight, but he feels like, okay, I'm in charge of these other guys, and I need to look out for them, which unfortunately puts me in conflict with Dwight and my dad. And
right, but the point is this: he's trying to take control, and his dad obviously is not letting him. Right. So there's that conflict is seriously going to come to a head at some point. We know Pete's obviously not health conscious, right, at this point.
Well, we know that, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that Chicky's intention is not to balance it out. It's just going to go terribly bad at some point.
Right, but I feel like he did want to take a further step than it went, right? Because he even said, didn't he say, "and daughter"? I mean, he literally went right there. He didn't. Yeah,
and that's when that's when Pete first started to kind of berate him, because they don't do that. They deal with their problems directly. They don't go after the family. And unfortunately, we saw at the end of the episode that Chicky did not follow that advice. But not at the very, very end, but the last time we saw Chicky. Although I'd say Tina's husband probably thought this was a breakthrough moment for Chicky.
This scene, I made a note saying, Pete, potentially Dwight's last friend in the mob. And then later on, we get that bit with Goodie. And that totally shattered my expectation, because I really want to see Goodie and Dwight in Tulsa together.
But doesn't that also further display what I'm talking about? Because who were the three people that were in the room when Dwight killed Nico? It was Chicky. It was, I don't remember his name, the guy who got punched out by Dwight in the first episode.
Vince.
And whose real name is Vince, by the way. I looked at IMDb, and any actor whose name is their actor name should not be acting. Just FYI.
And it was Goodie. So you had Chico with one guy who is Dwight's friend and one guy who is Dwight's enemy.
So what do you think this means for Goodie in Tulsa then? Do you think it's going to be a Dwight support mechanism or a potential foe down the road?
Yeah, I'm not going to even try to predict these.
I'm willing to take a bold stab at something. There has to be something that happens to the consigliere that Chicky might set up to make it look bad and make it maybe pin it on Dwight in some way. I just can't think of it being smoothed out through the consigliere. You know what I mean? So something has to happen.
I think Goodie ends up taking a major fall for Dwight with the FBI down the road.
Oh, interesting. And I like Goodie. I mean, he seems like he kind of reminds me of like Paulie Walnuts a little bit, kind of just straight up guy, or like Syl. He likes Syl too.
My next note just says, "Can we write Tina off of the show now?"
No, because Chicky only attacked the husband. I thought he was dead. I called it much earlier when the phone rang. I said to you guys, he's dead.
You did. You said it.
But leaving him only injured absolutely means that there's going to be follow-up, because she's now going to go to Dwight, be like, you said we were going to be okay. It's just going to give her more airtime.
Yeah. There were a few characters that kind of took a backseat in this episode. Mark, you brought up Tyson not washing the car. When he and Dwight meet up, it's a pretty tense back and forth, especially over things like the cops taking Tyson's phone and having Bodie's contact in it. And then we really don't get much from Tyson in the show after that. He's there.
We also know he gave the password away to go to the bathroom or whatever he had to do.
Exactly.
To get in there, but go ahead. Sorry.
No. That was the question. Like, is this a conscious storytelling effort to show tension between them? Or do you think they just don't really have much for Tyson to do now that the story's focused more on other people?
I think it's a little bit of both. At the same time, you can't focus so much on every character in each episode, or you just have too much to go over.
Yeah.
And this just seemed like a suitable place to give Tyson a little bit of a backseat. Although it was kind of curious because he didn't admit that he gave out the password. He just said to him, they're really good at hacking these days.
Yeah. I missed that until looking over a quick plot synopsis. Bodie. Significant lack of Bodie. Him being in hiding. What I love most about this show is the camaraderie between all of these guys. So getting the fact that Bodie is removing himself for the most part from the group until later on in the episode, which I love. But then the conflict between Dwight and Tyson, I think it's good storytelling, but not the storytelling I want. So I feel like my opinion is pretty biased about was this a good episode or not. How do you guys feel about Bodie taking a bit more of a backseat in this episode as well?
I didn't really care for it, but I understand why. But it was weird, like he was in hiding. But he was doing yoga? What was he doing? Yeah, but he was like, it didn't seem like hiding. It seemed like he just was like not going to work or not doing anything. You know what I mean? Like he's like, fuck this.
Well, if you think about the last episode, he went through some shit.
Yeah,
I know that,
but I mean,
familiar with it and just needs some time to get right.
But I'm saying, like, if I went in hiding, like, I'd be like, kind of shades drawn, like, really shuttered in. You know what I mean? Not doing meditation again.
And like, he's always a cynical character,
right?
But he just seemed removed. And the one person who has also probably about the same amount of screen time as Bodie, but his presence has so much more of an impact, I found this time, was Mitch. Mitch doesn't have a lot of lines in this episode, but he's also present.
Well, you can see that his status has been elevating since the moment that he kind of brought Bodie into the bar in the last episode.
Yeah.
And now he is absolutely displaying a lot more of an equal footing to Dwight. Even the idea that Dwight has offered to become partners in the bar, I think the terminology used there is very telling that they are becoming partners. And obviously, I don't mean just in owning the bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that completely. It goes back to what I was saying last time about at what point do we see Dwight take a step back and these other characters kind of take the forefront? Mitch, for sure.
For sure, in this episode, he showed his leadership skills and whatnot. But it's funny, once again, he makes that offer. Then that, we'll talk about whatever that event that happens at the bar. Most people would be like, well, I really shouldn't get in bed with this guy. And now he just leaned into it and he's like, yeah, we're good. We're good.
Yeah.
I found that pretty gutsy.
Agreed. What do we think about the meeting between Dwight and Waltrip? I am not a fan.
No, nothing happened.
I didn't like it.
What was the point of that meeting entirely?
Exactly. It felt like padding a story, but they put so much weight on it that it felt like it should be like a key piece for the story moving forward. And I assume it will be, but they never really gave us enough info in this to make us believe it. It's just looking at the characters in the story, that's all I can really see happening.
I would have loved to see it written in this way. They agree, obviously there's tension, but they agree, obviously they weren't going to do the nitrous anymore. But somebody on Dwight's crew keeps doing it, and then they catch him and then creates like a retention. That would have been a cool way to do it versus this bullshit, because like it was over, and then the guy's like, well, let's just send him a lesson, send him a message anyway. Because he said he was out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could almost let it there. I didn't like the way it was done, to your point.
It's a missed opportunity, I think.
When Roxy proposes a sit down, which ironically they didn't sit down for, I thought that this was going to be the first step to Dwight actually recruiting the bikers to be on his side against the New York Mafia. And then they actually get together and it's just a couple of insults and carry on our way. And it's like, well, that was a tease. And
I didn't find myself chuckling one time during this entire episode, I don't think, other than maybe when the husband got injured.
There were some good lines that I laughed at, but
right, I felt like, to your point though, it had this heavy, deep, like just heaviness to it, or just it was uncomfortable to watch again.
Yeah,
well done to your point, but awkward now.
I was waiting for something really big to happen. The tone of this episode made me feel like we're getting something massive, and there was no payoff.
This episode ended in a very similar symbolic method as the last one.
Yeah,
Dwight killed Nico, and that sets off the mafia, and now he kills Roxy's husband. I don't even know what his name was.
Yeah, me neither.
Seems like a weird thing to do. Like, I'm just going to shoot the front of a closed building without knowing who's inside, where they're at, or have any. Did he think it was closed? There was no one in there? It was a bar. It was at night.
I think it was panic.
No, I'm saying the guy in the motorcycle, he was stupid the way he even approached it. It wasn't even a drive-by or anything.
Yeah.
The message would have been like a couple shots and a drive-off, don't you think? I don't know. Him just standing there unloading seemed odd because obviously someone was going to retaliate.
No, it's a legit point to bring up because it is really dumb.
At that point, if you're going to send a message, just throw a Molotov into the bar.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Something like that. Maybe a couple shots and then a Molotov or something, and then you hear the motorcycle ride off. You see the jacket or something, and that's it. I don't know. It just seemed weird, overdone that scene a little bit.
Yeah, but this is absolutely a very big moment because killing him specifically is you now killed Roxy's husband, who is a member of the biker gang. The biker gang's not going to take it, but also the significant other of what I thought was kind of odd, but Roxy is an informant.
Yeah.
So you've now spurned both the biker gang and the woman who's the informant to the government faction.
Yeah. I have no idea where that's going to go. And I like that. I like that. I don't know what's going to happen in the next episode.
The biker guy was number 2, right?
We can assume as much because of his screen time with.
Because she said did she say my boyfriend's a vice president or my
Sergeant
man, my old man?
Sergeant
at Arms. That's what it was.
So third then.
Yeah, but the muscle.
Yeah. Before the ending of the episode though, I have one note saying I really do love the meeting at the bar because I'm always down to see these guys together. But we get Bodie's return, and again, it's very heavy. And Sandra, you brought up the point that in anticipation of the raid, they already removed the money from the store, which I love. But this time, getting the guys together, even Dwight acknowledging Babe in a booth in the bar, it was kind of funny. But this scene, it wasn't fun. The bar was where everybody gets together and we regroup, we have a few laughs, and we progress the story. And now it's a depressing space for me. Did either of you get that?
I felt like that's where the tension got let off, actually, in a weird way.
Interesting.
Because
okay.
Dwight let Bodie just unload on him about how much I should have left day one and blah blah blah, knowing what he had already done, right? Knowing that Bodie doesn't know yet, right? And then letting him just do it, and then kind of letting it go after, not holding a grudge and being like, "Cool, man, sit down. Let's go sit down. We took care of it already." So it felt like it was a release of tension in a way, didn't it?
In story, yeah, okay, I get that release of tension, but
a different angle, different point of view from it, of course.
Yeah, for me, it's normally this is where we get some jokes to relax from the stress of previous actions in the episode. And this was more of, I guess, an honest, open discussion between everybody in a place where we normally get humor.
Right. And no one got defensive. You just let them say it, right?
They tried to be humorous. They had Tyson making the joke, which was a terrible joke about the balloon animals and selling the nitrous to kids. I guess that was supposed to be kind of the tension relieving moment, but that joke was terrible. It was quite deflating.
Oh,
that was awful.
That's bad.
And also, I had no idea where they threw that in there for. That really threw me off too about the balloon animals. I'm like, did I just hear balloon animals and kids with nitrous? What? Let's go to a dentist.
Here's a point I really want to bring up: injecting more of Spencer into the show.
Well, what was the whole point of like the Spencer,
Nepotism.
the horse, the purchasing, the stabling? Like, I don't. Is this supposed to be some sort of weird metaphor for Dwight? Like, is this horse supposed to be a symbol of Dwight since we first saw it? I just don't know. I did enjoy the part where the guy who I guess owned the horse previously was like, I don't want that horse. It's useless and stupid. And Dwight's essentially like, yeah, well, it keeps breaking out on you. So what does that say about you?
Yeah. Keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as Spencer goes, she's, I believe, only here because she's a Stallone. Of course.
No, she's a Cage.
Okay.
Sorry. Isn't that a Coppola, right? Isn't Cage a Coppola? Like, I change my name.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever.
Pilot, Sandra, to your statement, yes, 100% is Dwight. Always
Agreed.
escaping, surviving, finding their own means to, just survive, I guess. But
so is Dwight putting it in the stable, being told it's just for 1 week, and him essentially scoffing at that, like, yeah, 1 week, we'll see. Him saying that I found my new home?
No, I think the 1 week thing goes very well along with him saying that he's considering getting out of Tulsa.
Okay, I thought that was maybe his mentality of being kind of banished to Tulsa in the first place. Oh, it'll just be for a little bit and I'll get out of here again. And now he's just like, no, I'm laying down roots, right?
You could be right. It is a decent interpretation. I just saw it as they're both on the clock right now. And they don't know how long they're gonna have where they are.
Well, it felt like he was laying down roots, or else he wouldn't have made the offer to the bar. I mean,
at the end, yes, you are correct.
Right, and it just didn't seem like that, right? Like, it seems like he's made this action now that seems to lend to him staying.
Well, these notes I'm going over, I made in real time, so that offer to buy the bar hasn't even happened at that point. No, you are very right with that, though.
Only in hindsight, man. We watched it already.
Yeah.
So,
I will say though, I didn't need any of this horse stuff in it.
it's like his daughter. Just kill them all, turn them all into glue.
What about Stacy coming up with a plan to set up Waltrip and have Dwight offer to buy guns from him?
She's going to do something that goes over the line.
Well, I mean, that immediately incriminates both Dwight and Waltrip, so she would come out on top there. And I think that's her game. But they don't go into that at all. So this is just a lost storyline for me, because Dwight shoots it down immediately. Scene's over. What was the point?
Well, if he accepted it, what they're trying to paint is that she's trying to help him, right? And he's refusing the help. And what she would have done is just made him the informant, right? And would have protected him during the buy, right? Would have made him absolve another.
Yeah. I guess it does make us question her motives, though, because I don't think that she would fully protect him.
Okay,
but that's just my
I think she's hooked. I think for some reason she has an unhealthy, unnatural, really liking of Dwight, even though we like him. He must be really good in bed.
You've made that comment on like every episode.
Well,
means he believes it, man.
Are you not confused about this relationship? Why she cares that much about him? That after 2 times in bed now, she's like, I have to save you and protect you from the big bad FBI.
I don't know. I think Ben was a little bit on point here, where I think her motivations are skewed, and it could be that she's trying to protect herself, because we saw the conversation in the bowling alley earlier in the episode where she tells Dwight, like, I could lose my job and my pension just for talking to you.
And now here she is talking to him because she makes bad decisions.
So she's having a panic moment where if she can essentially set up this sting purchase of the weapons, get Dwight as an informant, now she's saving her own career because she was dealing with Dwight in order to bring down the, was it the McAdams?
Yes.
So McAdams family.
Black McAdams.
It's saving her own ass.
I get it, but I'm gonna take the counterpoint to that. As she's telling him she shouldn't be talking to him, she's talking to him. As she's helping him, she's doing things that are way out of her purview that she knows already he's done bad stuff and is trying to help him get out of it. And she's going to overstep. That's my opinion. I could be way 180 degrees off, but I do appreciate the divergence in our opinions on this. I think it's kind of cool that we're both seeing it from different sides of the coin.
I think both of those are valid too.
I mean, they're both potential, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to play out. I am curious, but at the same time, like this should not be the main story element we should be focusing on. This isn't the A plot whatsoever.
Yeah, but we've been asking for them to do something with Stacy for a while now. Like,
well, allow
give
her to take
purpose.
The forefront. Exactly. Well, yes, but it doesn't seem like it's important enough yet. Like the story of this episode is, to me, muddled at best. So we've got very few episodes left to wrap up this season. And I don't know if the season finale is going to wrap up a storyline or just set us up for a bigger wave of the same story in season 2.
Quick question, gentlemen. Do you think he's going to get Sean Beaned?
No, without a doubt.
Like this season?
I still don't think that he'll necessarily get killed, but I think that he will potentially be killed. I mean, it's on the table, but he could also potentially end up back in jail. Maybe he does go to Siberia. And I would guess that maybe, and my mentality was based on Game of Thrones and Sean Bean, that they won't wait till the last episode. It might happen in like episode 8, where something happens to Dwight. And then episode 9, we see maybe even Mitch kind of pick up the mantle and the pieces around it.
I think it would probably happen in the first episode of season 2.
That would be a hell of a beginning.
Yeah. Set up a crazy finale for this season. Off him at the beginning of the next season. It gives you a massive viewership for that one episode, and then everybody wants to know what happens next.
Oh,
and that's where you give these supporting characters.
What did happen if they didn't watch it yet?
Exactly. Gives everyone a time to shine, all of the secondary characters. Or, you know what? They don't, and it gets played out old and canceled. But we've already covered what happens after this. Like, Roxy calls it Waltrip. Dwight offers to partner up with Mitch to run the bar. Tina's husband gets fucked up. And then we get the attack on the bar at the end. Did this feel like a solid end to the episode? Because when it ended, I was like, oh, it's over. There was no big like music like play out or anything. It was just a shooting that they came out on top weird. Of.
Yeah, I didn't really. It kind of just fade to black, right? Like, boom, done.
Sandra, how'd you feel about the end of this episode?
I thought it was good. I think that, like I mentioned earlier, the shooting of the biker is it's going to be more monumental just because it's going to hit from multiple sides. And ultimately, it's going to feel a little cheap that Roxy just all of a sudden appeared as an informant in this episode, just to conveniently be able to tie this killing into multiple factions. But I still think that the ripples of that action are going to be very great.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious to see what happens next.
For sure.
All right. So we've kind of covered all of the storylines in the episode. Why don't we get into our highlights? What was your favorite anything from the episode?
Honestly, that's a really tough one for me. I'm probably going to have to go with the meeting at the bar when right before Bodhi shows up. It was a little bit of the levity that I loved from the previous episodes. Like, again, I said the old man, babe, gave me a good laugh, and that's what I needed from this because I've already said this felt muddled to me. So breaking that up with a bit of humor, I really enjoyed. And then going into like Bodhi showing up and so on made me kind of care a bit more. But there was no real standout for me this time, which is unfortunate. Mark, what was yours?
For me, it was actually, is it Goodie? Is that what the guy's name, the consigliere?
Yep.
Yeah, it was the first conversation between the two of them when he said, you can't give me enough Valium to get on an airplane. I have to take a train. Like his two conditions were, I got to run it by Pete, the big man, and also I can't fly. And I thought their conversation actually was that levity that you were talking about. And I thought that was pretty decent of the conversations that were. But to your point, the entire episode was like one homogenized conversation that nothing really stuck out in any special way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that.
For me, it was Bodie's confrontation with Dwight. I think that it was a moment of brevity for Bodie because I even made the comment, that was like the most honest answer that he could have given when Dwight asked him if he had revealed any information to the FBI. But the moment that absolutely just put it over the top for me was after it all happened, after they showed him that they had kind of cleaned out the safe before the FBI could raid it. He just kind of says to Dwight, can I join you guys for dinner? And I was just like, yeah, I like Bodie.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. Up until here, when we have Bodie and Dwight interacting, it seems like he's just giving off smug sarcasm. And here it was a smug honesty, which we don't normally get from him. And actually, now that you bring that point up, Sandra, I'm going to have to switch my choice. That is definitely the highlight for me.
I think that you did make a really good point. I didn't really think about it, but by saying it that way, it also shows family, where you can actually get upset at someone for something they did or an action that they've done, and then still be like, I'm with you guys, right?
Yeah.
I think it also displays Dwight does run things a little bit differently from perhaps the mob and the bikers, because he can understand where Bodie's coming from. He can let off some steam. It's not an insult. It's not, disrespectful, and now he needs to be punished. No, now you got it off your chest. We can move past it, have a meal together.
But the fact is, Bodie would have had no issue with the bikers nor anyone else because his business was legal and he wasn't getting extorted until Dwight came along. So, let's be honest, he actually created the problem that he's trying to avoid.
Yeah, but we're not there anymore. We're here now. It's
okay.
The relationship has drastically changed from when the extortion began.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent
because
point.
we've seen
he just called last episode. He did say he was being extorted. So
yeah, but as early as the second episode, when they were going to the dispensary, we could see Bodie kind of warming up to Dwight and starting to see the value in Dwight, and it became less of like a forced relationship, and it felt like Bodie was kind of settling into it. And now, more than anything, the simple statement of, can I join you guys for dinner, is Bodie kind of willing himself into the group now rather than feeling forced into it.
I like it.
And this is what leads me to believe that in the next few episodes, we're going to see Bodie kill.
No, don't say that. Don't even put that out there.
No, not get killed. He's going to kill.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I want to see that
I feel like he was all fun up until the balloons with the nitrous in them in the parking lot. Then it turned on him. He's been kind of not fun since then. Yeah,
it could be a scenario where Dwight's presence just poisons everybody else around him.
Interesting. It was like a very good episode, but also not, didn't really stick out, right?
It was a great, not good episode.
Yeah, right?
Well, that brings us to the challenge of ranking it then.
It's like extra medium.
I know where I would place it, but I want to hear what you guys think.
Help us out where we're at, Sandro.
Okay, so the current rundown is episode 1, 3, 4, 2, and then 5.
I'll go first.
Okay.
This goes between episode 2 and 5. Second from the bottom. It's nowhere near as fun as I had previously. I've already said it felt muddled. It felt like a reset. It felt like we're building to another story. And that's fine, but it didn't have enough to really grip me like the other ones did, except for last one didn't grip me at all. I like that it's giving me hope as to where we're going, but it didn't promise me anything yet. So I'm putting it second from last.
I think we're right there. I have it either above 2 or below 2. So I either have it exactly where you have it between 2 and 5 or just above 2. And I'm not certain because 2 was for me, such kind of a deflator from 1 only in a comparison sense, right? And we talk about primacy and the rule of recency and all that. But I think you can sell me on between 2 and 5 for sure.
Yeah.
Sandra, what about you, man?
I put it above episode 2. I think episode 2 is still overvalued by Ben. It has been for a while, and we've had to talk it down to him. Outside of the humor from the trip, that episode 2 didn't really have that much. So, yes, it had more humor, but if I'm watching the show for humor, I think I'm doing it wrong. This episode had a lot more important pieces being moved around, although 2 did have bad face, which this did not. Inexplicably
See, you get that one little guy,
but that's just it for me. I think that I view this episode as a lot more of a trigger, as I mentioned earlier, and there was so many pieces that were, we'll say, put into motion that I was intrigued. I don't know if I was necessarily as entertained, but I was definitely very intrigued, and I would put it above 2.
I think it had a lot of meat on the bones, and I need to be sold of whether I'm going to put it where Ben or where Sandra wants it.
Well, you pretty much said that you were an either or, and Ben and I took the both
right. And I need
there.
to. Well, I don't know. We don't all have to be in agreement anyway. It's not like it matters that much.
Here's a quick question for you, Sandro. If the next episode isn't a banger, is this episode as good as you want it to be?
I don't know.
Because if you say this is a trigger and there's no payoff in 7, is this actually a trigger or is it just a mediocre episode?
It doesn't diminish the intrigue I felt while watching this episode.
Okay.
I found myself very glued to this episode, even though I wasn't riveted by it. Like I was very present in it, if that makes sense.
Sandro?
I think if it doesn't actually lead to the trigger events like I mentioned, I think that'll be more of a disappointment for the next episode than it will be retroactively for this episode.
Okay.
And it's kind of hard. We can't really talk about the rankings by the context. We're kind of taking them off on their own, right? On their individual pieces. And to the point, I felt 2 was more of a letdown. This one had more stuff. Like it had more meat to it, I felt.
Well, you are essentially the tiebreaker here.
I'm gonna go above 2. I'm sorry, Ben.
That's fine. It's okay to be wrong.
I love you, man. It does not have bad face. I mean, that's like you got we got 1 and 1A, we got 3 and 3A now or something.
He's not included in enough of the actual group scenes that we see.
Not yet. He's going to be a heavy-handed player later on. I guarantee it.
He better be. But Ben, you got outvoted twice now. So maybe, Ben, you won't get vetoed next episode. From everyone here at Channel Surfing, remember, here we are bloody but not beaten, down but not out. From this point on, this city and everything in it belongs to us. Until next time.